is the knowledge paper prepared by FICCI, the knowledge partner of GCPMH is PwC. Can we have a huge round of applause? Thank you so much. It gives me immense pleasure to invite Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Government of India since 2019. She previously served as the 28th Defence Minister from 2017 to 19. With a huge round of applause, can we please request ma'am to share a few words with us?
Namaskar and good morning. My colleague Bhagwant Kubaji, Minister from Orissa, Pratap Keshri Devji, Secretary from the Ministry who's done an exhaustive presentation, Subrakanta Panda, and the President of FICCI, Netaji, and dignitaries on the dais, industry stakeholders who've come from far and wide. I'm extremely happy to be here, hearing, listening, and also talking to you on the third edition of the Chemicals and Petrochemicals Manufacturing Hubs and their Summit. It's indeed a pleasure because even to start with, within a few minutes of his speaking, Mr. Panda gave us a very exhaustive and a comprehensive picture of where this industry is today. Similarly, we heard the Minister from Orissa also speak, and specifically about the way in which Orissa as a state has brought in all the facilities which are required and also looks forward to having the industry come in a larger kind of spectrum to participate and benefit from Orissa's favorable policies in this area. You had the Secretary come up with a comprehensive presentation as to where this industry is today in the country and what opportunities prevail. So actually, many of what I wanted to tell you today are already said, and I wouldn't therefore spend too much time elaborating on it. But I would certainly like to repeat some of the important observations which got packaged in the way in which many things were said. The potential and the size, existing size of this industry makes me see as to how far it has become a part of our economic fabric. 80,000 products is not a small thing. There are sectors which make a big impact with one product or two or three, but here is a sector which is producing 80,000 products which are going into our daily lives, and therefore you can imagine the impact this can have. It's understated, if I have to say the impact as it prevails today, it is understated. Yet, it is not achieved over a year or two, over several decades gradually, because of the way in which you have widened the scope of your products. Also made sure that applications in daily life also matter, and therefore your product innovativeness have also expanded, therefore capturing a considerable size of industry or daily use items. That is why you find, as the Secretary was presenting, you have an impact on construction, you have an impact on packaging, you have an impact on textile, you have an impact on every other, agriculture for instance. So literally several significant sectors of the economy are directly impacted by the products that you produce, and therefore you are a major influencer of the economy, and therefore also the challenges are huge before you. I was interested in the way in which the Secretary said, look, globally we are called chemical industry, but here in India we differentiate saying chemical and petrochemical. It makes the job even more complicated then, because petrochemicals and chemicals, whether called as two different or one, have very many challenges in this era, and it is on that set of challenges that I would want to spend a few minutes, because if 2 days with the domain experts, with the stakeholders and with the investors all around in this fora are going to be talking about this industry, it is the deliberations and their outcome which I'll be, just as Kuba said, I'll be interested in knowing from you if the current challenges are being addressed at all. And what are the current challenges? Sustainability of your products. Not just of your products, but also of the processes through which you produce them. The other is immense need for skilling. Why suddenly would there be a need for skilling? The next challenge which I pose will answer that. You need to adopt Industry 4.0 in a very big way. And I'm sure you're already doing it, but the rapidity with which you'll do it will help you to overcome many of the challenges. And the final thing is about skilling of people. Skilling of people, because if you're going to adapt newer technologies, you need people and manpower who are going to be able to stand up and work for you efficiently. Now, there are of course a few achievements which many of you all have already voiced, and I wouldn't want to repeat them. Although of course, consciously since 2014, because the emphasis has been that India should become a manufacturing hub, the policy facilitation that is so required has been constantly kept in mind, and that is why I would think of 100% FDI, being a completely unregulated industry, except you're regulated when it comes to hazardous chemicals, have all made you make a big impact globally. That is why whether you're talking of global dye supplier, India is a big supplier. Then when we are talking about also major chemicals and also specialized chemicals, where of course more help is needed. But it remains that India has made an impact in this sector. The combined exports of major chemicals and major petrochemicals in the year which is 22-23, and I think my data would only be up to September 22, is $9 billion. And it's a small increase, 2% from the previous year's export value. But I'm also keenly watching the figure which says imports have also increased to $13.33 billion. Of course, all imports are not bad. Imports are required for your manufacturing. Imports are required when you're particularly manufacturing with export considerations in your mind. And therefore, the vibrancy of the industry is also getting highlighted by the fact that not only are you exporting, but you're also importing. I'm quite comfortable with that. But the fact remains that many of these imports are items which can be produced in this country itself, and there are some efforts in that direction. I'm not negating that. The specialty chemicals, and the market has been growing exponentially. And the industry in India is projected to grow at 12% CAGR. And within 25, if you're growing at CAGR 12%, you're going to reach a very significant level, and I can understand the need, therefore, for more robust support for specialized chemicals. The emergence of this Indian specialty market has been driven by the country's strong process engineering capabilities. So that drives this need for specialty chemicals, low-cost manufacturing capabilities, and also abundant manpower. Abundant manpower, yes, but still that end of the skilling which is missing is what is hurting your R&D capabilities as well. So if specialty chemical markets represent about 22% of India's overall chemicals and petrochemicals market, and that is valued at $32 billion US. I can see a lot of members of the media here, and I'm sure they would go into great details in understanding this sector, participating in the deliberations between today and tomorrow. One of the challenge, I'd summed it up as saying there are only 4 larger pillars of challenge. But one of the biggest challenge, I think, the pollution control regulations, which are becoming stringent, and the labor costs and the collaterals involved in it are also becoming higher in all other countries. It's not going to be too late before India catches up on that, and it is required too. Manufacturers are looking to diversify their products and their production capabilities, and therefore, if the world is looking for an alternative destination, India stands out. But India stands out also because we have a large domestic market. I go back to this 80,000 story, 80,000 items which are part and parcel of our daily lives, sectorally or individually as consumers. Now, if viable options exist, it exists in such markets where there is a domestic buffer and beyond which there is an export potential. So that is where I think government's policies have been facilitating. I'm not getting into details of what policies that exist, but I want to remind, particularly because chemical and petrochemicals immediately raise the red flag on sustainability, carbon emission, general pollution, pollution of groundwater, and therefore I think we should remember that India has set its sight on becoming energy independent by 2047 and achieving net zero by 2070. So net zero cannot be achieved unless each one industry, each one sector contributes to it. We are very focused on green growth. Carbon intensity has to be reduced, and therefore each one of the sectors will have to contribute to this. Energy efficiency and renewable energy commitments of India are also very important. We should keep that in mind. 500 gigawatt of installed electricity capacities from non-fossil fuel sources. So when you're planning your industry, you need to keep that in mind, saying you're not any longer for a future industry, for a tomorrow industry. You're not going to be dependent on fossil fuel. You need to have a correct basket of balance. Otherwise, this goal for India cannot be achieved. You will not be contributing to it. Now, about the PLI, quite a lot has been said. We are in favor of having India becoming a manufacturing hub, and therefore, of course, we'll consider the PLI also for the chemicals and petrochemicals. The green hydrogen and the hydrogen mission is also something which I hope you will keep in mind. The National Green Hydrogen Mission has announced 19,744 crore rupees to start with for the year 23-24 to 29-30. India is a global hub for production, usage, export of green hydrogen and its derivatives. But I go back to speaking more about the 4 challenges. Sustainability, recycling or becoming a circular economy, skilling and importantly, technology adoption. So I would think that if there are investors, and I'm given to believe that global big such as Aramco from Saudi Arabia, BASF, Rosneft, ADNOC, Borealis have all started coming looking for joint ventures in India. Now, if they are looking for joint ventures, the partners in India should be conscious of the 4 challenges, as I put it. And unless you are able to bring in that element into what you are becoming a partner with these global big investors, India is not going to benefit from it. I do not want to be a pessimist or a naysayer, but we really cannot have joint ventures, even with the global biggies, when our standards in terms of sustainability are not really up to the global mark or the commitment which India has given as NDC, nationally determined commitments. So I would appeal to industry body, FICCI and its chemical and petrochemical wing, to look at what are the ways in which the sustainability or becoming a circular industry which can be achieved. And it is that suggestion which, if actively is shared with the government, we can take some decisions to facilitate rapid shift towards such technologies which will help in building a sustainable industry. Because it's important for not just India, but globally, if each of our commitments are not going to be fulfilled, and in this, the chemical and petrochemical industries' challenges are significant. I think it's important to have your recycling and reusability elements high on agenda. Efficient waste management, I would think, is important. Efficient waste generation is a point on which you need to think about. And also how to reduce the consumption of certain resources which are going to be high in emission. So there are points on which you have enough to discuss between today and tomorrow. I just want to draw your attention to a report which I came across recently, a McKinsey report which spoke about how chemical engineers in India are not very big number. Understandably, India being a software hub, you have more people moving towards IT and related areas, software related areas, or even hardware related areas. But chemical engineers graduate from India's top 25 and 30 institutions or universities. Only 1,500 of them come out. And many of them even shift their focus areas or specializations, not remaining within that area and grow in that area. They move over to study on other areas of specialization rather than continue with chemicals or petrochemicals. So I would think the 4 areas which I'd like to hear from you beyond other things that you'll discuss are important for us to immediately look at what kind of facilitation, this viability gap funding issue. I'll certainly love to have a paper coming from you. And more importantly, as we were walking to this venue, there was this issue of inverted duty structure which is hurting some of you. Inverted duty structure is an area in which I'll utter a word of caution. I'm not saying there wouldn't be any inversion in your areas, but inversion is on an item, if corrected, can have a collateral elsewhere. So I would want you to be mindful of when you're studying about inversion on any particular item. Because if there are items which are being used by you, which are useful in some other areas as well, correcting an inversion in this line can have a collateral impact on some other line. So where there is no inversion, your inversion getting corrected can put that one upside down. So while inversion is a great concern for industry, inversion of duty, and correction is definitely necessary, do look at it in a holistic fashion, and I will welcome suggestions, and I'll certainly assure that the ministry will give an open-minded look at it. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be with you.
With this simplicity and poise, may you continue to inspire us, ma'am. Thank you so much for your warm address, and can we please have a huge round of applause? Jai Hind. And now, for the concluding remarks of the inaugural session, can I please request Mr. Prabdas, Chairman,